Okay, so we're going to talk about symbolic language today as a solution to the problems of religious language. Now, really, here, the idea is rather different. When you think about the via positiva or the via negativa, which are attempts to explain how our language relating to God makes sense in a factual way, this takes a different tack entirely. It says that our language, the key idea here is that our language about God, the way that we speak about Him, is a participation. So it is part of the religious kind of practice. It's a participation in the religious idea. So the idea there is that our talk of God and the stories that relate to Him is part of the action of being religious. And all of the religious symbols are really have their reference point not in fact per se, but rather in its participation in the stories and the concepts of God. The person to propose this was Paul Tillich, and Tillich made a distinction between two kinds of things in our concept of language: signs on the one hand and symbols on the other. So signs are things that point to something. When you get a notification on your phone, you know you've got a message. That's a sign that you've got a message. When you see a sign, it's a sign. The idea is that these things aren't part of the thing itself. That notification isn't the message. It's a sign that you should open your phone and check your message. The sign that's pointing you to a landmark or to the next road or whatever is not part of that landmark and not part of that next road. It's instead pointing you towards it. So signs, they point to the thing. And Tillich thought that in normal life, most of our language is a sign kind of language. But symbols play an important role too. So to give you a secular example, the American flag is one that's often used in relation to Tillich because the Americans, they really care about their flag. So the flag doesn't point towards America. It is America. It's part of what it is to be American. That's why they really don't like it when people burn their flag. So an American flag participates. It plays a role. Oh, participates. I apologize. Participates. Oh, there's my spelling mistake. You know I made it over there too, don't you? But we're not going to talk about that. That would be embarrassing and something that I definitely wouldn't go in and correct because it's because it's around. So anyway, the flag participates in America. It participates in the thing. It's a bit like Napoleon, the French general, giving his legions an eagle from his own hand, and when they carry that into battle, they'll give their lives to protect the eagle, not because the eagle points towards France and Napoleon, but because it is France and Napoleon. So that's the flag thing. So let's talk a little bit more about this distinction between signs and symbols, because if we really get that down, if we really understand it, then we'll begin to understand his application to religious language. So the idea is this, expressed by Paul Tillich. This is his concept of signs. Words, because we're talking about language, remember, not not these sorts of things. Words in a language are signs for a meaning which they express. So words typically in a language are signs. So he gives us an example. The word desk is a sign which points to something different, namely the thing on which paper is lying and at which we might be looking. So the word desk points to not the squiggle that you see before you or the sound desk that you hear, but rather it points to the physical object that you are probably using right now to rest your phone or laptop on to watch this tutorial video. So signs then are really something that signify. They are not part of it itself, but they rather signify the thing that they are pointing to. They are also conventional, he thinks. That means that we use them, they don't have any particular meaning in and of themselves. The word desk could be replaced with the word bleh. But if we all agree that the word bleh means the same thing, then we could use that in its place. It doesn't matter. And that means that actually what we can do is that we can replace them. They are completely replaceable. They are replaced by expediency. Now, expediency just means essentially convenience. Whatever is useful to us at the time, we can change the sign to fit that. So the sign at the moment points in a particular direction. At one point in Britain, for instance, all signs had different kind of writing on them and so on. And if you drive through the countryside, you'll still see that a bit. But if you're driving along the motorway, every sign has the same writing because it was unified. It was replaced by expediency. Similarly, traffic lights. I don't know why I'm using so many driving examples, but traffic lights are a really good example. Down here is green, I believe. Here's a thing you didn't know about me. I'm colourblind. You probably did know that about me from drawings that I've done, but I can't tell that. I just spend a lot of time guessing when I'm making these drawings. Sorry about the weird laugh. So just as an example, I'm red-green colourblind, as are quite a few people. And what used to happen is on a dark night, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference between green and red, and people with colour blindness would run through the traffic lights. So they put a blue tint in the green. They changed it through expediency to make it clear for someone like me what is green and what is red. So it's easy to change them. It's not a problem. And the same, he thinks, which is our point, goes for words. Words like library or desk are just used by convention and can be changed if we need to. On the other side of the issue, though, are symbols. Now, symbols are different. He thinks, wow, that's a lot of text all of a sudden. I apologise. Let's start with the definition. And this is a paraphrasing of what Tillich's saying here. They open a new reality into our souls. What on earth does that mean? What he's saying there is that they essentially touch our feelings in a way that signs just don't. A traffic light is never going to bring an emotional reaction, but symbols do. And they can't be replaced deliberately. Unlike signs that can be, symbols can't be replaced deliberately. They only grow and evolve over time according to custom. They grow and they also die. So for instance, the example I used earlier of the eagles that Napoleon gave his soldiers, no Frenchman's going to die for those now. but they would at the time. They carried great meaning and import. So symbols are different from signs in at least two important ways. They're not just replaceable. They have to evolve. They have to grow out of a culture. And they also participate in the thing that they represent. So just turning again, for instance, to the American flag, this wasn't always this way. It developed over time. The stars, for instance, representing the number of states that there are. It's also a kind of protected symbol. It's a protected thing in America. You've got to look after it. And it's something that Americans are willing to fight for. So now we can turn our attention to religious symbols, because Tillich thought very much that religious language is not like signs, but it's rather symbolic. As Tillich wrote about religious symbols are distinguished from others by the fact that they are representations of that which is unconditionally beyond the conceptual sphere. In other words, it's beyond our understanding, but they represent it. They point to the ultimate reality, so to God, implied by the religious act, to what concerns us ultimately. So these are participations in the religious behaviour. Things like religious texts, like the Bible, communion wine, which, unless you're Catholic, is just wine and bread. It is actually also a participation in the sacrifice that Jesus made for you, according to Christians. And of course, the best example within the Christian sphere is the cross, which is often worn by Christians. And if you see many churches from the sky, you will see that it's even in the shape of a cross. It is part of the, it's not just a sign towards Jesus' sacrifice in their view, it's actually a part of it. It is a constant reminder. It is part of their religious behaviour. So his fundamental idea, then, is that religious language doesn't point towards God. It rather participates in the divine. It is a human's way of connecting with what he calls the ultimate reality.